Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. A couple of months ago, I made a video stating that those who control the money control the media, and those who control the media control the narrative. And there is no clearer example of this than this campaign to create a YouTube hit list to terminate the channels of black men who present dissenting voices in social media. What's happening here is that a cabal of fascist black women are going out to develop a hit list of individuals who disagree with the narrative of mainstream black feminist media. And these females want to use their money and their resources to continue to try to maintain control over the narrative of black media. They see the threat coming from not only black men's channels, but white men's channels and men's issues channels, and they want to try to silence those voices so that they can continue maintaining the narrative they have presented to America for the last 40 years. And they want to try to silence everyone on social media who presents a dissenting voice. And this handful of black women, not all black women, want to silence anyone, not just black men. What everyone needs to understand is that this group of fascists has also put white men on their list, and they have also put black women on their list. And that clearly shows us that this is about controlling the narrative. These black women want to maintain the black feminist narrative that has controlled black media and black social media for the last 40 years. And they want to maintain that narrative for the following reason. These black women pretty much get their economic needs met from that narrative, and if there are dissenting voices out here, that pretty much leads to other economic interests coming out and saying, well, this person over here is doing this, and this person over here is doing this. So why are you continuing to complain to me about being a victim? And that's how your black fascists make their money and get their needs met, by playing the role of the victim. And when it comes down to these black fascists in black media and black feminist media primarily, they need the position of the victim. This is why they have created this YouTube hit list, and this is why they are talking about hate speech, because they need to be the victim. You see, when it comes down to the black feminists and the black fascists, they falsely tell us that they are the ones being victimized by black men who present differing opinions. And they tell us that they are the ones being victimized by ideas that counter their own narrative. And they'll sit there, and what they'll do is they'll make it look like they're the ones being abused, when in actuality, they are the ones abusing others and instigating much of the trouble on social media. Because this is what happens when you deal with codependent people. Codependent people live to be the victim. They live to start drama. They live to start arguments. They want to get back to that victim position because they believe that this victim position is a position of power. And this is how they get their needs met by outside groups such as white liberals, white feminists, and many others who look at the black community and listen to their narrative and believe that this black woman is such a poor put upon victim. And when they see other black voices on social media stating that she is not a victim, that pretty much upsets many of these black fascist females because they can't control the black community and they can't get their needs met from white liberals and white feminists and many others who they pretty much go to get their economic and social needs met from. When there are others presenting dissenting voices and differences of opinion, that pretty much refutes many of the ideas they want to present in the mainstream media as what the black community is represented as and how the black community is supposed to be to the world. And that's what they want to do. They want to control that narrative. They want to continue maintaining control over that narrative. And that's why they establish things like YouTube hit lists, because they want to maintain the fascist state that has controlled the black community for the last 45, 50 years. They want to continue maintaining the welfare state that has been controlling the black community for 45, for 50 years. And they want to continue maintaining their sense of value and worth in the black community as leaders in the black community. You see, when there are dissenting voices and dissenting opinions, that means that the platform is growing, the platform is widening, and that they can no longer control the narrative. And that narrative started changing in the late 2000s when YouTube came along and black men started getting a platform for their voices. And now that the voices are getting louder, stronger, and more people are speaking against their narrative, you have this group of black women making a desperate ploy to maintain their power base. Unfortunately, this whole game is going to fail. One is going to fail because they are now showing that they are un-American in trying to violate the Constitution and the First Amendment and the free speech rights of not only black men, but black women and white men. And two, we see in mainstream media on shows like Netflix's Luke Cage, mainstream products being established to refute their narrative. Now, when we look at Netflix's Luke Cage, this is a show that pretty much refutes many of the talking points in the black feminist narrative and the black victimization narrative. We have on Netflix's Luke Cage on one of the episodes where they show us the Mariah Dillard character, and then they show us her grandmother, and they show us who pretty much was controlling Harlem at the time. For many years, we were all taught that that most of the drug dealers and the gangs were male. But when we look at Luke Cage, it pretty much presents us with a completely different picture and shows us the fascist state established by the black feminists and black women, and in a clear picture for all of us to see. And when we look at that show, we see how deep the impact is, regarding the changing of the narrative. And this is what's really got many of these black fascists scared. They know that they pretty much can no longer control the narrative, and that once this media starts growing larger and larger, their pool of foot soldiers is going to start to shrink. And that's what they used to control the black community for over 40 years. They used a large pool of simp males, and they knew that if they told them these lies about no good black men and trying and all this other stuff, these guys would fall in line because they thought that they needed to get her attention and her approval. But with each man that goes out here and presents a counterpoint and a different narrative, these guys have to start thinking, and they don't want the foot soldiers to start thinking, because if the foot soldiers start thinking, then they have no one to enforce their power on. And that's what they're really scared of, because they see that they can no longer push this black feminist propaganda as mainstream and norm. They can no longer push propaganda like The Color Purple and Precious out here when there were guys like me writing novels like Spellbound. They can no longer tell black men that they are no good when we have large groups of black men coming on YouTube with college degrees telling the world a completely different story. They can no longer play the victim when there are black men testifying online to their experiences with dysfunctional black women. They can no longer play this game because the playing field has been leveled, and once the playing field is leveled, they can no longer stand up and say that they are the black woman as God. They are going to be looked dead in the eye by black men. And this is something that many of these fascists don't like. They don't like having to deal with an equal and level playing field. They don't like having to deal with direct competition. And they don't like being held accountable for their actions and the sad state of the black community and their contribution to it. Because under the original narrative, we were all told that the black community is in this sad state of affairs just due to the behaviors of a group of dysfunctional black men. And this propaganda was pushed for over 40 years. But once social media came along, we started to see that as black men started presenting their points, not only in YouTube videos, but in self-published books, blogs, and other social media, we started to get a richer picture, a bigger picture, and a clearer picture. And this is what the black fascists want to try to stamp out. Unfortunately, again, this is not going to happen. One, because of the Constitution, and two, because social media is large and broad. In order to try, if you try to silence black men on one forum, they will just go to another one. And there are so many forms of social media that it is just not possible to try to censor black men. And the YouTube management, as I see it, they really need to take a long, hard look at this so-called hit list and really do something about it, because again, these females in this fascist group have pretty much presented evidence of their irresponsible, reckless, and unpatriotic behavior online for the world to see. And once you see this behavior, there is no choice, YouTube senior executives and managers, but to take action to protect the free speech of all people online, because not only are there black men on that list, there are black women on that list, and there are white men who are presenting dissenting opinions regarding black women. And if these fascists are allowed to censor those people, they are going to take their platform and use it to try to control your website and control the content on it. And that should not be allowed on a platform that says broadcast yourself. If all people are allowed to broadcast themselves, then all sorts of opinions need to have a free and open platform to present themselves. If people are not promoting violence as stated under the Constitution, like stealing fire in a crowded theater, then they are entitled to present their opinions online. If people choose not to listen to those opinions, they have a right to click out of them. No group of individuals should be so high above the Constitution of this United States to believe that they can create a hit list and have an entire group of channels eliminated just because they don't like the opinions presented on them. They have the option that every American citizen has, and that they can click out of whatever they do not like and then go watch something else. Many of these same black men, white men, and black women exercise those rights every day. And they see many of these black fascist channels and they don't watch them, and they exercise that option. And the same group can also exercise that option. If they don't like the content, there is a red X at the top of the right hand side of their PC and the left hand side of their Macintosh that they can click out of at any time if they do not like this video and they do not agree with the narratives presented in it. No one has a right to censor anyone unless they are going out here and promoting criminal activity or some sort of bodily harm to someone else. And when I look at this YouTube hit list, this is promoting cyberbullying, this is promoting cyber terror and harassment. And this is something that, again, YouTube senior management needs to do something about before black men, white men, and black women go out here and file a class action lawsuit against Google and YouTube for infringing on the First Amendment rights of all these groups. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Samurai Goddess. The Goddess Next Door takes on Kung Fu killers in this action-packed martial arts Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today.